Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. The wheel of fortune ran over me on January 6th, 12th, when I was returning from church. To be honest, I am an unbeliever. Well, that's how I was raised. My father, Andrew Dodson, a professor of mathematics at Hasden University, is completely indifferent to religion. My mother, a technology engineer, is also not a fan of the Bible. Maybe that's why my parents have been living together for 42 years now, and I've never seen or heard them quarrel. Everything is different in Lillian's family. No, quarrels there are also a rare exception. But her ancestors are conservative Catholics. They also raised their children in the spirit of the true faith. Lillian Dodson, née Parker, attended church services. No, she was not an eternal churchgoer, but on big church holidays, it was obligatory for her to attend the divine service with her family. And the sixth number, is the baptism of the Lord. I took a day off from Caleb, my boss. Lillian has a free day on Friday. Tomorrow is Saturday, and today it was safe to do all sorts of nonsense. We left the children in the care of my parents and ourselves in Lily's BMW, drove to listen to Mass. Respecting the religiosity of my wife's family, I often accompanied my wife to church. I even liked this serene time. Sit quietly on a bench while the choir chants. Think about the present and the future. When no one pulls you, no one demands anything from you and does not rush you anywhere. I even went to Holy Communion observing the tradition, as long as the wife is happy. On this day, as usual, a midnight dinner was supposed to be held in my house by the fireplace in the family circle. All of Lily's relatives and mine were supposed to gather, in the number of 20 people. How did I get a fireplace? Yes, from nowhere. I don't have a real fireplace. It is replaced by an electrical simulation. My mom baked a whole chicken farm in curry sauce. Lily chopped 4 varieties of salads, each with half a bucket. I bought 12 bottles, a box, of Pinot Noir. By the way, it's $1.52 apiece. I added 4 cases of beer to this. In short, everything was ready for the festive pastime. But it didn't work out. After an hour of sitting in the church, we drove out onto the Whitesville Road highway in a whole family cavalcade and drove towards my house. After driving no more than 100 yards from the cathedral, I lost consciousness. Just like that, I was driving calmly and seemed to blink. I opened my eyes. At your mother, what kind of trick is this? I'm lying in the ward on an IV. I didn't understand anything. I tried to restore the sequence of events. Where is there? At first, consciousness slowly restored memory. It was only 10 minutes later that I discovered that I was a man, that my name was Mark Dodson, that I was 39 years old, that there must have been some kind of accident on the highway. Then I remembered that I have a wife, Lillian, and 4 children. I panicked. Oh my God! Children! What's wrong with my kids? Memory suggested that the daughters and sons stayed at home. I'm terribly lucky. Just monstrous luck. At least start thanking God for such luck. Imagine what would happen if we took the children with us. Turning my head with difficulty, I found a woman dozing in an armchair next to my bed. The gears of my brain turned with a creak, and I recognized Lynette Dodson, my mother. Mom, where? Lily? Mom jumped up. My God, Mark, you're awake. Mom, where? Lily? I insisted. She's here in the same clinic. This is Marshall Medical, son. And she answered my questioning look. Lillian's fine. Well, she's recovering. I fell into unconsciousness again. The next awakening was more meaningful, and let's say more productive. The doctor who came explained to me that I had a severe concussion from the explosion, several minor hemorrhages under the skull, which fortunately did not affect the cerebral cortex. Several vessels in the cerebrospinal fluid burst. However, the most difficult thing is that the vertebra in the lumbar region has shifted. But now, surgically, this vertebra has returned to its proper place. After a while, I'll be able to move around normally. I asked 2 questions. Did you say, from the explosion? Yes, Mark. Explosives were planted under the bottom of your car. I think the police will explain everything to you in more detail. I am not an expert in these matters. And one more thing. You said, move around, and not walk? The surgeon, a guy a little older than me, sighed. At first you will have to use a corset and crutches, then a cane, but after 5 to 6 months the function will be restored. The doctor, what time is it? Am I here? Not for long, Mark, not for long. A little over 2 weeks. I croaked. And you know. How is it there? My wife? Your wife has a broken left shoulder and collarbone. In addition, she has a rupture of the articular capsule of the hip joint. She also has a severe concussion. The picture is bleak, but all this is fixable. I did everything I could. Both you and your wife will recover quickly. Is there more? Victims? No, just the two of you. Thank you, doctor. How do I like you? Name it. Call me Fred. Dr. Fred Rosinski. ADAS. That's the situation. I spent the rest of the day figuring out who I was crossing the road to. By evening, I came to the conclusion that I had no enemies. There are several opponents with whom we did not agree on the amounts, but they are not so offended that they try to eliminate me. Apparently, there was some kind of mistake. I didn't even think about Lillian's enemies. Well, what deadly enemies does a university professor have? I figured it out and forgot about this version. A month in a plaster corset. It's hard. I had to lie down a lot, the doctor insisted. He wanted the vertebra to fall into place correctly. I wanted that too. Here we had a complete unity of views. Lillian didn't get up at all because her left leg was rigidly fixed. At first, our mothers were constantly on duty in our wards. Gradually, the functions were restored. We could already eat and drink on our own. And the relatives began to visit us for 15 to 20 minutes a day. He was discharged on Friday, February 17th. Lillian was supposed to stay in the clinic for at least 2 more weeks. She was plastered, I was told, in a boot. This device looked more like a spacesuit. A plaster corset covered the lower back and the left leg to the foot. She could only stand up straight or lie down straight. When I went to her room for the first time, of course, with the doctor's permission, tears welled up in my eyes. God, why is she in such agony? She didn't do anything wrong to anyone. And so I climbed out onto the porch, squinting at the February sun in the clear blue sky, with a cane and a fabric corset. Besides the fear that someone who wished me harm would repeat his attack, I was tormented by the worry that I would lose my job. To miss a month in the paperwork of the claims sector, this can turn into a disaster. You see, I work in the legal department of the Caterpillar plant in my hometown of Albertville. I will allow myself a small digression. I, Mark Dodson, am 39 years old, graduated with honors from the law school at the University of Tuscaloosa in 1997, and received a master's degree. If you are related to law, you have probably heard the story of how a university graduate who completed a master's degree found serious inconsistencies in the charter of a certain large company with the corporate legislation of Alabama. This story had a great resonance in the legal world. Well, that was me. They immediately hired me on the condition that I would not make a fuss, and they instructed to check all the statutory documents for compliance with the laws. A year later, I was appointed head of the Division of Claims and Claim Work of the legal department. I had 2 women under my command. The first is an accountant auditor. The second is a specialist with 2 diplomas, a Master of Economics and Management and a Bachelor of IT Technologies. We have an excellent salary and the respect of the directorate. It was. Now I do not know how they will treat me after a month's absence, although I have always considered my position in the team to be stable, but some creatures who decided to kill me severely undermined my status in the company. But nothing. I'll get to them. I will raise all my friends. I'll put the police on their ears. I'll hire private detectives. I'll show them Mother Kuzmas, the bastards. These bastards just don't know who they're messing with. Mom drove me home in my Chevrolet Equine. Lillian's BMW turned out to be a wreck and could not be repaired. At least human bodies turned out to be stronger than iron and mechanisms. And right on the porch, when I didn't even go into the hallway, one of my bosses called me, the administrative director of the company. He immediately took the bull by the horns. Mark, I called your doctor and found out that you can already sit and walk a little. Yes, Ivrin, I can. Then here are 3 days for you in the form of a small vacation, and right here. We have a small blockage here. The law department messed up a bit. Well, okay. I'll tell you straight out, he messed up a lot. To be completely honest, he completely fucked up. The board of directors is unhappy. Caleb is almost crying now. He wants you badly. Otherwise, his head will be blown off. Well, that's it. Come on, get well. Holy shit, like I knew some shit was going to happen. Caleb, this is the head of the legal and information department, my immediate supervisor. My God, what have they done? Finally, the house. Nice house. The children were living with their mother-in-law and father-in-law at that moment. Gwen, Lily's mom, drove them to school and picked them up from school. My mom stayed with me. I was living in Dixie Circle at the time, right before turning onto Saratoga Street. Maybe you know this big brick 2-story house, a former administrative building standing far from the road, behind which there is a whole complex of warehouses for rent. After taking a shower, putting on clean underwear, eating a piece of chicken and a plate of salad, I sat down at the computer to make a plan of action. I painted everything, what to do, who to call, and what to buy. After lunch, I couldn't sit still, and I asked my mother to take me to Lillian. Sitting by my wife's bed, I quietly talked to her about various things. After a while, 2 people entered the room, accompanied by Dr. Radzinski. He said, "Gentlemen, you have half an hour," and he left. The gentlemen introduced themselves. They were 2 Marshall County detectives, 2 Jameses, James Hanser and James Wecker. They sat down in the chairs kindly provided by the staff, opposite Lillian's bed, and began, "Mr. Dodson, Mrs. Dodson, we're sorry about what happened. This is a brutal terrorist act, but we've already found the culprit. I was keenly interested." "Did you detain him?" "No, we don't have that option. This is one Edward Gastman, born in 1992. I looked at Lily. She turned pale abruptly and closed her eyes. Apparently, she knew who this young man was. As a lawyer, I will give you good advice. If a police detective is talking to you, don't interrupt him. Listen to the end. This will save you time and keep you from making mistakes. I listened carefully. Unfortunately, we were unable to interrogate him, but we know his motives. The fact is that he kept a diary and, based on the entries in it, he was guided by jealousy. Edward Gastman tried to kill you, Mrs. Dodson. His wife was lying with chalk-white lips. I stopped the detectives and asked Lillian, "Darling, are you all right?" "No," Lily replied. "I'm not all right. I wanted to press the staff call button, but Lily asked me not to do that." "Don't, Mark. Let the officers finish," his wife asked with trembling lips. "We need answers to some questions, Mrs. Dodson. Can we continue?" "Yes," his wife whispered. "So that's it. Gastman, I was in love with you, Mrs. Dodson. Did you know that?" "Yes," Lily nodded curtly. "He writes in his diary that you and he were lovers for a year. It's true?" "Yes," came the quiet reply. "And you knew that this young man had not yet reached the age of majority?" "Yes, I knew that." "According to his notes, this is what happened," James was saying tonelessly. "On January 2nd of this year, you, Lillian Dodson, met Edward Gastman in the Bee Gees cafeteria. At the meeting, you informed him that your relationship was ending. As the young man wrote in his diary, "She used me and threw me in the trash." The detectives looked at my wife questioningly. "No, it wasn't like that. I didn't throw it away. I had my own life, my own family, and I couldn't cheat on my husband anymore." Lillian lowered her head mournfully. I tensed like a string, but silently waited for the continuation. Edward, in upset feelings, decided to take revenge for this, as he writes, "Mockery of his love." He produced in his basement almost a kilogram of acetone peroxide, a sufficiently strong initiating explosive. While your BMW was parked in the parking lot at the Catholic Temple of William, Edward taped a plastic bag with the manufactured substance to the bottom of the car, under the driver's seat. The detective read out monotonously. The hair on my head started to move. Both my wife and I were on the verge of death. When leaving the highway, the substance detonated from the shaking. The male body is stronger than the female body. The perpetrator did not expect that it would be her husband, not the victim, who would be driving. That's why you're alive, Mrs. After looking at our apparently not-so-great-looking faces, Detective Wecker continued. Yesterday, at 11 o'clock in the evening, Edward Gastman was found in the basement by his mother. He hung himself on the printer wire. Death was caused by asphyxiation. In the note he left, he blamed a certain Mrs. Dodson for his death. That is, you, ma'am. The other James, the hunter, sighed sadly. The guy in the library has Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and Gumilyov books read to holes. Probably reading Russian classics has a negative effect on the psyche of teenagers. I froze in stupor and shock. My wife cheated on me for a whole year with a young boy? He was still only 20. Heck. And because of her, we almost ended up in the cemetery. Well, well. What if we had children with us? Heck, I never expected this from Lillian, a 41-year-old woman in such teenage irresponsibility. What have I done to make her do this to me? My head was spinning. My vision was blurry. I was burning with indignation. but I understood that I had to control myself. Well, Mrs. Dodson, the mother of the late Edward, Mrs. Gastman, filed a complaint with the district attorney's office accusing him of driving a minor to suicide. What can you say about this issue? His wife covered her face with her hands. Oh my God, what a nightmare. The Jameses waited, in their opinion, enough time for his wife to recover, and continued. We are not calling you to the station or taking you to the county jail. Given your physical condition, the public would not approve of this, but we need answers. Please gather yourself, ma'am, and explain your position to us. We really need answers. Then my lawyer mode turned on. There are often times in the work of a practicing lawyer when they consciously try to bring you out of your mental balance, in the hope that by giving in to emotions, you will make a mistake. Solving conflict situations requires great endurance and fortitude. It is very important to be able to distance yourself from circumstances, to perceive the conflict as a purely technical task, and solve this task without emotion. This time I had to make a terrible effort not to flare up and do something stupid. From the terrible tension, everything inside turned to stone. Even the heart began to beat slower than usual. My cheekbones were cramped, my temples ached. Words came out with difficulty and my eyes squinted all the time, as if from a bright light. I must have looked scared. At least it's unusual. Lillian looked at me with fright during the conversation and immediately looked away, and the police looked on with wary suspicion. I overcame my weakness and hoarsely announced, Gentlemen detectives, from now on, I will assume the duties of Mrs. Dodson's lawyer. Do you have a license to practice law? Wecker asked. Yes. You can call the Elberville branch of the American Bar Association. They will confirm that I have a license to conduct civil and criminal cases. We won't bother the board, sir. I think that you, a well-known person in the city, will not mislead us in such a serious matter. So, I ask you, gentlemen, taking into account the physical condition of my client, to postpone the investigative actions to a later date. We understand your concern, but we will have to demand in court that Mrs. Dodson be forcibly taken to the station for questioning. Yes, gentlemen, I agree, it's your right, but hopefully it will happen after Mrs. Dodson recovers. Now, as you can see, it is in an untransportable condition. It goes without saying, after recovery. My head was spinning. I was afraid to fall and held on with a monstrous effort of will. But he concentrated and continued. Good. I agree with this statement of the question. We finished the pleasantries and moved on to the prose of life. Have Mrs. Dodson sign this paper. She is forbidden to leave the city until the end of the investigation. Mrs. Dodson, I said, sign this paper. After the detectives left, I had only one thought in my head. Fucked up. Everything that had been built up for 14 years collapsed in a few minutes. All plans, dreams, and hopes crumbled into dust. Everything turned out to be a sandcastle, or out of shit. It depends on how you look at it. The detectives left, and I sat in a state of shock for a long time. Finally, recovering a little, he spoke. Mrs. Parker, I asked Lily grimly, what was all this about? His wife was breathing heavily. It seemed like she was going to throw up. Okay, I backed off. Let's postpone this conversation until tomorrow. You should be ready by evening. Try to pull yourself together. And now, have dinner and go to bed. Just like that, simply and matter-of-factly, 2 people came and destroyed my life. The mother-in-law entered the room, pale, no better than Lillian. I realized that she was eavesdropping. My mom was also standing in the doorway with a long face. Silently, without looking at me, Mrs. Gwen Parker began nervously wiping her daughter's body with a damp sponge. And I went home. More precisely, I was taken. Mom didn't say anything. She was no less shocked than I was. After dinner, I took the prescribed pills and went to one of the guest rooms, to sleep in the bed in which my wife probably sinned with the poor boy. No, please fire me. Fortunately, one more bedroom remained vacant. I don't know why, but I switched off instantly. Many men with whom I talked about such topics talked about prolonged and tormenting insomnia, about the torments of resentment and anger. None of this happened to me. I got to bed, fell down, and fell asleep. That's it. In the morning, I limped into the basement where I had a small gym. Perched on the simulator, I drove myself at medium loads, accustoming my weakened muscles and nervous system to movement. I walked on the device for about 20 minutes until my mother called me for breakfast. After a silent and unsuccessful attempt at a morning snack, I went to the computer. I didn't feel like eating at all. I had to plan my actions. The situation was difficult and it was necessary to be prepared for anything. It's bad that everything is frozen inside. My brain was turning slowly and painfully. Something has happened to the psyche. She had to be pushed with an effort of will. Therefore, all information had to be double-checked. But the matter was urgent. I'm not a great expert in matters of criminal and criminal procedure law, but I know the general principles of building legislation. Therefore, I quickly got my bearings in the intricacies of the codes and explanations to them. Then I sat for a long time, thinking about the situation, detached from my personal problems. Finally, I made a decision. I need to go to the prosecutor's office, get acquainted with the case. Mom told me, "Son, I can't stay with you all the time. I have to go to work." "Mom, don't worry. I'll be fine on my own." We hugged, and I kissed my mother on the cheeks and hugged her to me. "Mom, I love you so much." "Thanks, son. Thank you, dear. I love you too. I'm going to ask you to control yourself. Don't do anything stupid. Okay? Promise?" I grinned at him. Mom. No one will expect nonsense from me." "Can I not worry?" "Absolutely." Before leaving, I looked under the bottom of my Chevrolet. It will probably become a phobia for life. On the way, I stopped by the clinic, and Lily signed our contract for the provision of lawyer services. We walked the 40 miles to Fort Payne in thought. The fact is that the prosecutor's office is not represented in our small town, and the prosecutor and his team were stuck in the district center. I rolled slowly without overloading my spine with sudden movements. For my reasons, if everything goes as I assumed, then the case will not go to trial, unless Mrs. Lillian is stupid. For some time now, I have stopped hoping for her reasonableness. This means that in order for everything to go according to plan, you will have to work seriously with the client. It sometimes snows in Alabama in winter. Not often, but it happens. And in the foothills and in the mountains, he lies down every winter and stays for a long time. February turned out to be extremely warm and sunny this year. The scoreboard showed the temperature overboard at 44 degrees. The contrast between the bare branches of hickory and oak trees next to the bright green crowns of yellow pine against a surprisingly blue sky acted as a sedative. This trip calmed me down and set me up for a decisive mood. After submitting all the necessary documents, I received the file with the case of Lillian Dodson. From the contents, I understood that the prosecution has only poor Gastman's diary, his posthumous note, and the confession of Mrs. Lillian Dodson herself. And that's it. Is that all? Yes, with such a set you can close a case with a clean soul for lack of evidence. Apparently Lily, thank God, was smart enough to leave no trace and avoid witnesses. I thanked the secretary and went home, as they say, with a feeling of deep satisfaction. I've dealt with one case. After lunch, I was in Lily's room. "Let me outline the situation, Lillian. Are you listening to me?" Lily nodded fearfully. This woman was very difficult. In 1999, she defended her PhD thesis on the topic, "The Influence of Professional Legal Awareness on the Formation of Positive Law in the Byzantine Empire." The year before, Miss Parker and I were married, and I worked hard selecting articles, books, and other materials for her research. After graduate school and PhD, Lily started working as a teacher at Hasdon University, the same place where my father was. She taught the theory of state and law. Then there were 4 of our children, one by one. Our last girl, our beauty, our princess, was born in April 4 years ago, and Lillian began to prepare the material for the doctoral. How could she be so rude to this kid? What happened to her head? Why did she, an intelligent woman, throw herself into all sorts of trouble? Unclear, and I wasn't going to get into the situation right now. I had more important tasks to solve. The ability to postpone the secondary in favor of the main problems. These are the basic rules of a lawyer's time management. So, I started quite officially. "Lillian, you did something stupid. You shouldn't have admitted to having sexual intercourse with the late Edward Gastman." "I'm sorry, Mark. I was under the impression of an attempt on my life. Now I understand that I should have kept silent. I've looked at the file on you. The prosecutor's office has only his diary as evidence. A posthumous note as proof means nothing. And the diary, we will pass off the entries in it as the fantasies of a teenager in love. Is that clear? Mark, the boy died. He died because of me, and I feel guilty. I have to be punished. I killed him. That's it. Stop. Here's the deal. I thought about it. It was necessary to shake up his wife's psyche. No, I can't bring myself to call her wife. Let it be the mother of my children. Yes, I think that's right. When you had a vulgar affair with a child, I... No! Lily snapped, offended. Look, Mrs. Parker, if you avoid calling a spade, then I refuse to handle your case. In this case, my other colleague will tell you exactly the same thing, only it will be an outsider. For now, we can keep everything between us. All right, dear. I'm sorry, I'm worried. Lillian, I said, distracted, I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm listening to you. Please stop calling me dear, darling, beloved, and other similar words. You are welcome. Explain why? Because it sounds like bullying. I don't like it. Okay, I won't do it anymore. Will just Mark go? Yes, let's continue. So, when you, a 41-year-old woman, had a vulgar affair with a child, you killed your family. But you didn't feel guilty about it, and she did not seek to be punished. And now you want to be punished for his death. You want to leave 4 children without a mother, me without a wife. That is, you want to finally kill the people you love. What is the conclusion? What is the conclusion? The mother of my children responded, You love Edward more than us, more than Alicia, Austin, Sandra, and Molly. I'm already silent about myself. It's your lover who comes first, not your children. What do you say? Lily lay staring at the ceiling and wiggling her eyebrows. I thought, that's how you feel about it? She finally breathed out. That's not my attitude, I corrected. It's the truth and the prose of life. That, Mrs. Parker, is objectivity. It's either your little friend or your little kids. That's the choice, and nothing else. So what do you say? Lillian took a shuddering breath. Good. What should I do? I sighed with satisfaction, too. My psychological preparations were working. We will present the case like this. You have nothing to do with Edward Gastman. You're a decent woman, and his insinuations don't concern you. Entries in the diary of the deceased? You can write anything in a diary. He read dubious novels and fantasized about dubious deeds. Is that clear? Yes, Lily sighed. I see. A posthumous note. It's a thing from the same category. Your only fault is that you're at the meeting, the first and only meeting in that ill-fated cafeteria. Do you understand? The first and the only. Remember, the first and the only. When you met him, you abruptly refused to approach him. Is that clear? Yes, Doro. Sorry. Yes, I see, Mark. Now about the detectives. During their visit, you were under the influence of painkillers and sedatives. Here is a copy of the prescription sheet. Amitriptyline is the strongest psychotropic substance. You just didn't understand what they were telling you, and you were amazed that your student tried to kill you. This is exactly how you will explain your incorrect answers to the questions asked that day during the interrogation. Am I making myself clear? Yes, Mark, everything is clear. I'll be there all the time. Look at me more often. If you doubt how to answer, look at me. All right, Mark. The mother of my children agreed. Next, you'll be confronted by the deceased's mother, Emmy Gastman. She will be hysterical, put pressure on the psyche, accuse and threaten. Do you understand? Lillian nodded. Cry. Cry because you feel sorry for both the boy and his mother. But you didn't do anything. You don't understand what she's talking about. Roar like a beluga, but don't admit anything. Even if your conscience twists you like an appendicitis attack, your life is at stake, and most importantly, the lives of your children. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Lily was extremely upset, but she agreed. Yes, Doro. Yes, Mark, I understand. Great. If you make a mistake somewhere, you will be given a minimum of 4 years, a maximum of 17. You will come out of prison a very old woman with a crippled psyche. Your children will hate you and then forget you. You won't see the birth of your children's children, and you won't be able to babysit your grandchildren. They will grow up to be strangers to you. You will ruin your life even because of a small oversight when talking to the detective in charge of your case. Therefore, be careful. Did you understand everything well? Yes, Mark. You managed to scare the shit out of me. Lily looked at me with round eyes. It means that she has understood. That's great. If you make a mistake, but by some miracle you manage to avoid jail time, then you will lose your job, reputation, and the respect of your children. Did you get it? Yes, Mark. You've thought of everything. Only, wait a minute. During interrogations, or as they call it, interviews, you should look the same as you do now. Remember the expression on your face. A long face, a slack jaw, wide open eyes, a confused, darting look. This is what we need, okay? Yes, I got it. But Mark, why are you doing this? Why are you saving me? Don't you understand? Lillian, don't be a fool. You are the mother of 4 children who are probably my relatives. I'm saving my supposed children. Is that clear? But these are your children. Mark, how can you doubt? Do you think I have no reason to doubt? However, I'll check it out. I will take samples for DNA analysis. Okay, that's it. Tomorrow I will come and we will rehearse your reaction to the questions and your answers. Till tomorrow. And I left. I went to Lily's one more time on the 19th. We played out all possible situations with her, and I was relatively satisfied. Moreover, I previously examined the ward for video surveillance, just in case. It is impossible to take into account everything, but Lillian was protected from the main dangers. At least that's what I hoped. I never went to Marshall Medical again. I brought the children once, but I didn't go up to the ward myself. There was no desire to see this woman. Lillian Dodson was discharged from the clinic on the 2nd of March. Magnolias bloomed in the parks of Albertville, and next to the warehouses, on the border of my plot, the crown of the jacaranda tree was covered with a cloud of purple flowers. Spring. I brought Lily home, and the kids were happy, hanging around her like enthusiastic puppies. Lillian stood on crutches in the middle of this mess and was frankly happy. I was looking at the picture of a family reunion, and an involuntary smile crept onto my face. A family idol, her mother. Mom and mother-in-law had a grand family dinner, and all the ancestors looked intently at me, then at Lily, apparently expecting something bad. But I didn't give them any reason to be upset. He feasted with everyone and pretended to be satisfied with everything. The guests went home reassured. When the children went to bed and Lily and I were left alone, she said decisively, "Mark, I think we need to talk." "Not today, Lily. We'll postpone our conversation. You and I have a hard job ahead of us, and we don't need to fill our heads with all sorts of nonsense. I think a summons will come on Monday, and I will have to go to the investigator. That's why you need to rest and prepare properly. So go get ready for bed." "Mark, this is not nonsense. We have a difficult situation and we need it." "Lily," I growled, "we'll discuss this later." "When is later?" Lillian persisted. "Then when the time comes, go to sleep." As you probably understood, Lillian is 2 years older than me and often gave out a commanding tone. I almost always conceded. But not now. She has lost the right to dictate terms to me. And anyway, she has lost all rights in relation to me. I went to my guest bedroom and fell asleep. I got drunk and tired during the day. We didn't talk over the weekend. We just ran through our criminal exercises once again, practicing the surprised expression and confused tone. If you think that this is nonsense, then you are very mistaken. And on Monday morning, the summons came. Arrive at the city police department at Sand Mounting Drive by 1500 hours. There you go, dear. It started. Everything went exactly as I had planned. And the questions, and Mrs. Gastman's hysteria, and the investigators' bewilderment about the change in the initial testimony. But the police officers couldn't do anything about my reinforced concrete protection. The case was closed. I drove Lillian home, and I rushed across town to work. Yes, I forgot to tell you. Caleb really messed up. He missed a reference to the specification in the contract. Do you understand? There is a specification, but there is no link. The partners, taking advantage of this omission, changed the range of supplies. Of course, they acted dishonestly, but business is business. We must use all opportunities to increase profits. The management demanded to find a way out of this situation. We were told in plain text, "Resolve this issue or we will consider your legal department absolutely useless for the company." Is that clear? I've been racking my brain for 3 days, and I found a way to put pressure on my partners. We all make mistakes, and we all take advantage of other people's mistakes. Business is not a goldfish aquarium. Sharks and crocodiles swim in this swamp. The rest don't survive. Where did the suppliers go wrong? They're from Iowa. And Alabama is indicated as the place of conclusion of the contract. Do you understand? A small inaccuracy. But it had big consequences. I looked up the municipal register of corporations registered in the state, and I did not find a company cooperating with us there. And she has to be, in strict accordance with federal corporate law. Then I privately called Iowa and explained to the company's directorate what mistake they had made and what amount of fine they were supposed to contribute to the budget. But we can fix this little misunderstanding, blah, 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 true, true, true. They agreed. And where should they go? The amount of sanctions is such that the whole operation makes no sense to them. I'm not squeamish. I came to the administrative director and said that I had resolved this issue. We just need to make changes to the contractual documents that correct both our mistake and theirs. The delivery will be made in strict accordance with our requirements. Iowa agrees to these conditions. Caleb was retired. The man lost his grip. Alas. Naturally, I was appointed head of the legal department, with a corresponding salary increase of $2,500 per month. My annual salary is now $156,000. However, this is so... Retreat. Don't pay any attention. When I got home, Lillian started up again. Mark, we need to talk. How much can you put off? I cut it off. We'll talk this weekend. I'll take the kids to your parents and we can discuss our problems. I changed my clothes and went to rake last year's fallen leaves on the lawn. With that, Lily temporarily calmed down. Damn it, I had so many problems with my new position. I wanted to postpone the solution of family issues for at least a month so that I could safely do the organizational work without clogging my head with extraneous tasks. At least the official chores distracted me from the depressing thoughts about the mess my family was in. With a fool, I went online to read the advice of psychologists on the issue of female infidelity. I was wondering if it was possible to save a family in such a situation and how to do it. Well, that's bullshit, I have to tell you. One must sincerely forgive. Forget and never remember. It's like I have a switch on my ass. Click, forgive, click, I forgot. What's the funniest thing about all these tips? Yes, the fact that when it comes to cheating on his wife, the husband must understand. He must analyze what he did wrong to bring his wife to a state of infidelity. The peasant is directly charged with the duty not only to forgive the unfaithful spouse, but to ask her forgiveness himself. And if the husband has cheated, then he is a scoundrel and a scoundrel. He must be bullied and bullied, without any sympathy or attempts to understand. It's interesting, isn't it? In short, I sent all these advisors away. After all, I studied psychology myself, though criminal and judicial. But this is even more effective than general psychology. It's sad that I spent the whole evening on this nonsense. On Saturday, I took the children to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They were always insanely happy with their grandchildren, pampered them, and did everything on a whim. I think both Gwen and Thomas spent at least a quarter of their pension on entertaining my offspring and buying their grandchildren stuff. My gang always came back from my grandparents with gifts. All four of them always just screamed with delight when we were going to visit the Parkers. We were left alone in the house. It's time for a conversation and a showdown. Coffee, sugar, and cream. The cane is on his knees, the crutches are leaning against the tabletop. Lily and I are at the kitchen table. We sat in silence. Lily, did you want to talk? Mark, please don't rush me. I have to concentrate. They were silent for a while. Finally, Lillian began, Mark, thank you. And to my raised eyebrows, she explained, if it wasn't for you, I would have been in big trouble without you. Lee, I saved my children first of all, but all the same, even considering that you are my wife and you are entitled to a discount, you owe me $6,000. And we both smiled at the situation. Lily was joking. I can give you the money right now, but I would prefer to pay in a different way. The hint of making love made me sick. A heavy stone began to grow in my soul. Lily saw my twisted face and realized her mistake. I'm sorry, Mark. It was really inappropriate. Honey, let's get down to business, Lillian agreed. So, Mark, we have a difficult situation in our family. Something has to be done about it. Suggest options. What would you like? Lily thought about it and asked, And what do you want, dear? Lee, I thought we had an agreement. No expensive ones. Mark, let me call you that today. Please. Good. Just today. So what do you want, dear? I have a plan, and I will stick to it. Won't you share it? Why not share it? First and most importantly, I need to acclimatize to my new position. Lily's eyes widened. Do you have a new position? Have you been transferred? Where to? That's later. That's not what we're going to talk about right now. But darling, I'm interested. I'm worried. I wanted to say that it's none of her business now. Yeah, okay. What is it now? Since Wednesday, I have been the head of the legal department. And Caleb? Retired. Darling, I congratulate you. It's wonderful. I watched calmly and waited for her delight to subside. Lily caught my gaze and fell silent in embarrassment. I continued. When I put things in order at the office, you and I will divorce, hopefully without a scandal. In order not to traumatize the children, we will pretend that we remain husband and wife until Molly turns 18. Then we sell the house and split up completely." I spoke to her in a hollow, colorless voice. The heaviness and pain in his chest were growing again. My cheekbones were cramping, my throat was stiff, and therefore my voice changed. It became monotonous and creaky. Lillian was staring at me intently. "That's the plan," I said. "It seems to me that everything is quite reasonable." "It's a bad plan," his wife snapped. "This plan is no good. Why should we get divorced if we're going to live in the same house? It's like the whims of a teenager." I opened my mouth. I wanted to say that she understands teenagers in detail, but there's absolutely no need to be silly venting your resentment. I feel bad enough as it is, and the bilious horseshoes will make it even worse. And I shut my mouth. Lily was waiting for my explanation. "You see, dear, I will need to work banally to ensure the future of my children." "Is this a worthy goal, I hope?" "Well, that's right. That's what a real father is supposed to do." "Tell me, can I work productively if I am constantly in an unsatisfied state?" "You mean making love?" "Yes, dear, I mean this." Lily stared at me intently. "I can give you as much comfort as you want." She wasn't thinking straight. "Darling, I can't make love to you. I'm sorry, but it's physiologically impossible. My organs have stopped responding to your charms. Only bitterness and resentment. Accept this fact." "Listen, Mark, it's going to pass." She realized the dubiousness of her statement and stopped. "Lily, dear, are you suggesting that I wait for the rest of my life for this to pass?" Lillian thought about it. "So you want to divorce me in order to date another woman?" "Of course, dear. And what else do people get divorced for?" But Mark, you don't have to get divorced to do this. You can get yourself a mistress." "A young girl." I pricked him anyway. Lily frowned, but agreed. "Let it be a young girl." Then she hurried. "Darling, we have children. We can't destroy the family." I thought that Lee realized too late that this could not be done, and he explained it out loud. "You see, Lily, with this option, there is a risk that you will divorce me, motivating me with my adultery. I won't do it. But there is a risk. I don't want to be made a fool of." Good. She frantically searched for a way out. Finally, it dawned on her. "Dear, we will do this. We will conclude a formal agreement on a free marriage. And if—" "Stop, Lily. What kind of free marriage is this? What will be the essence of this agreement?" His wife shrugged her shoulders. "Well, you can get yourself a mistress. And you? And I can't do that. Then the question is, how long can you stand in this state? How long before you snap and do something stupid? Understand that a divorce will loom at the end of this agreement. It's inevitable." "Well," the wife became stern, "we will specify in the contract that if I leave you, I will leave here in a housecoat without things. The house will remain for you. Custody of children is the same." "Lily, what's the joy for me? Will you leave the house in a housecoat and you think I on the table in the living room will dance a jig of happiness?" "Mark," my wife leaned toward me, "you still love me. It's obvious. Find yourself a woman, I don't mind. I won't say a word. I deserve this fate. Just don't get a divorce." "Oh my God, Lily. Is the record at the municipality so important to you?" "Yes, Mark, it is. This is stability. It gives me a sense of stability. And then, I sincerely love you." She stopped my objections. Yes, you don't believe me right now, but I still hope that someday, that at least one day you will come back to me. Don't take that hope away from me." "Well, all right. Good. If you decide the issue according to your opinion, do you think I'll find myself some kind of simpleton to make love to? Some kind of jerk? Am I the kind of person to look for this in the trash? My God, Mark. Well, find yourself a normal woman. Are you suggesting that I, like a snotty Edward, break up someone's family?" "Darling, you're like a child." Lily put her hand on my arm. "There are a lot of single women in our city. You see, Lillian, you're a woman. So you had fun with a guy, and then you left him without regret." My wife blushed and wanted to say something, but I stopped her. "Listen to me. You're a woman, and I'm a man. If I'm having an affair with a woman, then I'm responsible for her. I'm answering, do you understand? It would be normal for me to date a normal, decent woman, but I will take responsibility for her, just like I once took responsibility for you." "You mean it's going to be your second wife?" "Lee, I don't have a first wife right now. It's sad, but it's a fact. Good. I agree. The path will be the second, one more. I think I can find a common language with her. I even agree to her living in this house. I shook my head in frustration. And the children? What kind of example will we show the children? How do we explain this situation to them? And again the same question. How long can you stand it? After what time you will lose it? And will that woman agree to such a harem? All this is unreal. There is only one way out. Divorce. Lee leaned on the table, bringing her face closer to mine. Mark, listen to me. Listen to me, Mark. I didn't do anything terrible. I didn't set fire to the house. I didn't waste our savings. I didn't leave the kids. I didn't try to poison you. She realized that it was not worth talking about love. It's not about what you did or didn't do, baby. It's about how I feel. It hurts. You're hurting me. Just by his presence. It hurts me too. Darling, understand I've been punished enough already. What does this have to do with me? Can't your self-punishment ease my suffering? And so the conversation dragged on in vain for more than an hour. In the end, we came to the conclusion that it is easy to break, but impossible to fix. Pushing our chairs together, hugging each other, we cried from impotence. Can you imagine the picture? The chief lawyer of an international corporation and a candidate of pedagogical sciences, hugging each other, sobbing loudly. Lillian looked into my eyes through tears as if she was escorting me somewhere far away and for a long time and said, "Thank you, Mark. Thanks. What are you thanking me for, Lee? For not pushing me away. And you don't hate it." And she kissed me gently on my lips, which were filled with agonizing bitterness. Saturday continued relatively calmly. We no longer tried to torment each other by analyzing what happened and looking for loopholes to fix the situation. In the backyard, I grilled a mountain of shrimp and opened a bottle of Montecruz Crianza. The evening passed peacefully. The next day, Lillian couldn't resist starting over. "Darling," she said, "I think we can fix this." "Damn it, Lee. Why immediately? We. It's like I pushed you to betray me. It's insulting. Why are you putting the responsibility for your joints on me? Personally, I don't see a way to fix it. This is your problem and it's up to you to fix it. But, tell me, Lee, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong to make you lie down under some boy? Tell me, please, where are my mistakes?" Lee looked very sad. "You didn't make mistakes. Everything was fine with us. You're just reassuring me. You don't want to completely destroy my ego." "No, Mark." Lillian was getting hot. "You did everything perfectly, both in life and in bed." "That is, do I need to fix anything? Then why should I do it? Why we and not you? I'll fix it." Every time I was reminded of my wife's adultery, something turned to stone in my chest. I took a deep breath, calming down. "How? You're not giving me an answer to my question. How?" "I will be the best wife for you." "Will you be the best lover for someone?" I pricked her, unable to resist. Lily freaked out. "If only you would listen." "Good. I'm listening. Lee, honey, I'm serious. Now I sincerely hope that you will find a way out of this humiliating and dirty situation. Therefore, let's make specific suggestions. I will become the best wife. You can't be the best. You can't be better than Cynthia Oliver." "What's going on with you and Oliver?" Lily demanded. "She doesn't even know me. How is she better than me?" "Are you laughing? She had a dowry of 12 million. She earns 1.5 million a year. She loves her husband and does not cheat on him. How can you be better than her? So you need a dowry. Do you need money?" I grinned at him. "Come on, Lily. Don't make a monster out of me and accuse me of commercialism. I earn great money myself. What the hell do I need someone's money for? Am I going to take them to the grave with me? I need my Lillian, whom I idolized, who didn't roll around in this shit. Shit is the right word to describe the situation. My God." She grabbed Lee's head. "I'm turning into an ordinary, vulgar woman. Darling, listen to me. I understand that you want to solve everything in a civilized, reasonable, and human way. Let's talk without hysterics. I will try. Just help me find a way out of this situation." "And what kind of exit are you waiting for? I still don't understand what you want." "Well, from what is possible. Mark, I'm sorry for—" "Stop, don't say that. You don't have to apologize. Tell me how much you love me and how sorry you are for hurting me. No need." All right, dear. Mark, listen to me. Listen, and then tell me what you think." "I'm listening, Lee." "You know, This boy, he was a born schemer, a talented and unscrupulous manipulator. He cornered me. But the worst thing was that he was a sick man. Monster. The world should have breathed a sigh of relief when that brat stuck his head in a noose. I hope that you will understand me. Why didn't you come to me with this problem? I don't know, dear. I can't understand it. It was like I was hypnotized. I'm a grown woman, but this little brat was manipulating me so cleverly. He begged, complained, threatened. He flattered and made vulgar compliments. He constantly tried to touch. Apparently I'm weak and stupid. And she fell silent, looking out the window at the green thorn along the road. I don't know if you need it. I decided to confess too, but I keep pushing the picture away from me. The spread legs of my wife, my beloved woman. Mark, he's dead. He's not here, Lillian began again. He can't do anything else to annoy us. Mark, let's put this out of our minds. Let's try to start over. I didn't love him. I even despised him. When he started me, I interrupted her. Do me a favor and spare me the details. You're opening up wounds. When? How much? Where? Of course, my mind is troubled by such questions, but I forbid myself this interest, because it's an unhealthy curiosity and it hurts me, and I want it to be none of my business. And in the end, is it worth discussing the way in which I was spat in the face? I turned to her. I understand. You just couldn't resist. Maybe there is no big fault here. Maybe it's even my fault. But now we just can't do it. Betrayal is the death of love. And if I conditionally forgive you and just go on living pretending that nothing happened, then this is punishment. I will be punished for who knows what. Life is too short to spend years in torment and longing, realizing that you are a complete non-entity. And besides, Lily, I paused, formulating my thought. There are a lot of students at the Institute, and there's no guarantee that your next lover won't be able to kill us. I'm fine with that. I've lived for 40 years now. I lived well. I have something to remember before I die. There's no question about you at all. If you want to play with fire, play to your heart's content. But there may be children with us at this moment. It is an unprecedented piece of luck that our daughters and son were not in the car. I think it's better for you to risk your life alone, without putting our 4 babies at risk. I suddenly sobbed to myself. Molly is very small. I don't want to bury any of them. It's unfair and disgusting to put them in danger. Lily stared at me with wide eyes and tears rolled down her cheeks. Apparently, she did not seriously think about the terrible probability of events. But at that moment, it hit her. We were finally divorced in June. The court decision did not affect our lives outwardly. The only thing that surprised the children was that their mother and father were sleeping in different rooms. The divorce went so unnoticed that the mother-in-law found out about it only in the fall, in October or November. Naturally, all the relatives were immediately notified. There was a flurry of calls and meetings expressing concern, sympathy, and bewilderment. But nothing could be changed. And finally, all the relatives accepted this fact and calmed down. Our mothers knew the background of this mess, but strangely enough, they kept it a secret. Apparently rightly believing that the fame of a cheater and a cuckold is of no use to us, their children. And now the story of another woman. That same fall in November, my fate came into close contact with the fate of Kirsten Martinez, with a woman 6 years younger than me. In 2013, she turned 34 and I was exactly 40. Her mother, a Mexican, immigrated to the Confederacy in 1979. She was already pregnant with a girl at that time, who, having matured, turned into a beautiful girl, distinguished by a small stature and impressive forms. A Brazilian ass combined with a bust, like that of actress Kelly Brook, caused salivation in all male individuals of our company without exception. When she entered the office, work stopped for a minute. Everyone watched her walk without taking their eyes off her until she disappeared behind the door of the claims department. Do you remember when I was talking about the 2 women under my command? Kirsten, this is the accountant auditor. In addition to her outstanding bodily forms, she has another feature. At the age of 12, Kirsten, returning from school, was hit by a cyclist. The bastard didn't even stop, and the girl was hospitalized with a severe concussion. After this injury, the left part of the cerebral cortex, responsible for the right side of the facial muscles of the young Kirsten Acosta, lost its functions. Therefore, the smile of my accountant auditor always looked ironically mocking. At first I was annoyed by this woman's constant crooked grin. So far, my colleagues have not explained to me what is the matter, but as a specialist, Kirsty deserves the highest praise. In November of the 12th year, I found a strange picture. Kirsten was bursting into tears at her desk, and Gloria and several women from neighboring departments were circling around her with napkins, medicines, and mineral water. It turns out that Kirsten's husband, Luciano Martinez, took all the money and left in an unknown direction. Heck, I always thought that Mexicans cherish their family above all else. I calmed the girl down. I asked her if there are problems with payments for the house, or if we are talking about the banal need to purchase groceries. I will always help. I asked her to ask for help without any hesitation, and the first thing he did was take all the cash out of his wallet, $200, and gave it to her no matter how Kirsty refused. Imagine that she came to work, persuading the bus driver to let her borrow. Such a situation could end badly for her. When she said she would be looking for a divorce lawyer, I immediately reassured her again, announcing that I had a paid license and promising to do all the legal work for her. Is free. It was amazing to me. How could you leave such a pretty little girl? Who could she be exchanged for? That Luciano of hers must be a fool. When Kirsty calmed down a little, I suggested that she not grieve, but act, and she spent the rest of the day minding her own business. She closed all the shared cards, which were already empty, divided the 401k account, and blocked the safe deposit box, which her cunning husband had not yet reached. Meanwhile, I wrote a statement of claim for divorce and a demand for a ban on approaching. After lunch, I took the documents to the city court. 20 minutes later, I received the order. That's where I calmed down. Exactly 10 days later, Gloria... By the way, I need to tell you who Glo is. She is a specialist with 2 degrees, an economist and an IT developer. Gloria is an old friend and colleague of mine. I came to the factory in '98 and she in '97. We've been working side by side for 14 years now, and I can't imagine my department without her. It gives me some kind of sadistic pleasure to constantly extort a salary increase from the management, and she voluntarily assumed the duties of my administrative shield. Everyone in the department unconditionally respected her opinion. So she said that Kirsten wanted to talk. Well, why not talk? Martinez came in upset and scared. What's wrong, Kirsty? Has your husband turned up and annoyed you? Kirsty's eyes widened. And how do you know? You see, girl, I have been living for a long time and I look at this world carefully. So spit it out. And what do you advise me to do? Kirsty, you have a ban on approaching. Use it to its full potential. Do you understand? If anything happens, call the police right away. Don't negotiate. Don't let him in the house. Let him beg, threaten, and cajole. Don't believe anything. Otherwise, everything will end badly. Is that clear? Kirsty hesitated. Mark, I don't have anyone in this city who can help me. Mom, what can she do? What kind of help do you need? You know, Luciano is coming tonight. He promised. And so did I. Can you not resist and bring him back? Yes, Mark, you said it right. Although I understand that this threatens to be a disaster, but I'm afraid I can't refuse him. I sighed. Oh ho ho, women. Okay. What time is he coming? Then when I get back from work. After 6 o'clock, a whole delegation of women, led by Gloria, was waiting for me at the exit of the office. The ladies were determined and were going to teach their scoundrel husband a lesson. Feminists, what to take from them. Okay, ladies, stop this heroism for me. I'm going alone. Is that clear? Claire Nelson, our clerk, stated, Mark, we're not at work and you can't order us around. We will not leave the girl in trouble. I grinned at their determined heroism. Yes, we're not at work. But think about it, lady. What if he, Luciano, has a weapon? And you all, without exception, have children. You risk leaving them orphaned. Do you think this is a justified risk? The women were confused and thoughtful. Only Claire wouldn't let up. Mark, you have children too, and there may be a situation there. I interrupted. In this situation, I'm enough alone. If the case turns criminal, then, after all, I went through ranger school, and you, as I understand it, are going to throw slippers at him. It's not reasonable. That's all. Go home. I'll tell you the details tomorrow. And the protesters dispersed. Damn it, why don't people think about simple things? It always surprises me. As soon as we entered the apartment, there was a knock on the door. Kirsty was even shaking. That's him. It's him. Kirsten, don't shake. Call 911. Quickly. And Kirsten dialed the number. I opened the door. He was standing on the threshold. Yes, Mexican. A typical representative. Swarthy, small, with a thin mustache. "Who are you?" he immediately began. "I'm Mrs. Martinez's lawyer. I would like to warn you that I have a court order that prohibits you from approaching Kirsten Clement Martinez and her apartment less than 50 yards away. Here's the paper. Am I going to yell at her from across the street? You know what, lawyer, stick this paper up your ass. I have the right to talk to my wife," Luciano hissed. "Kirsten Martinez doesn't want to talk to you." "Kirsty, baby, I want to talk to you. Just to talk," the Mexican yelled. Kirsty went out into the hall. "Luke, darling, go away. I'm not going to talk to you. You robbed me. You're an unscrupulous man." Luciano got excited. "Listen to me, lawyer. You'd better get out of the way. Otherwise, I'll break all your ribs." But the boots of the police patrol were already clattering down the stairs. I sighed and smiled. Good. Start. The Mexican grabbed me by the lapels of my jacket and tried to push me away, but the weight difference did not allow him to do so. The cops came up to the playground. "Stop it immediately. Freeze everything. Keep your hands where I can see them." Luciano somehow deflated and walked away from me. A policeman holding a taser at the ready demanded, "Quickly explain to me. What's the matter here? A woman called and she's in danger." I took out the decree. "Officers, I'm Mrs. Martinez's lawyer. I have a paper forbidding Sir Martinez from approaching his wife. He," I pointed, "ignored my warning and wanted to enter the apartment by force." The police checked the documents of all those present, read the court order, and asked the Mexican hero to retire to the required 50 yards. He was glaring at me like a reed cat, but there was nothing he could do. I closed the door, and thank God we remained in silence and safety. "Well, that's all," I summed up. "Now you can live in peace." Martinez was shaking. I sat her down on the couch. "Kirsten, do you have a first aid kit?" No. "That's it. I have to go to the pharmacy." Suddenly, a bad thought struck me. "Wait, Kirsty, tell me, did your husband beat you? Did he beat you?" The girl hid her eyes and nervously wrung her fingers. Oh, Martinez, that's it. And why did you put up with it? I loved him. I thought he would understand that I love him. I just spread my hands." "Well, you give it. How can you love a person who physically humiliates you? Are you a masochist?" "No, Mark, I just thought that I was doing something wrong. And I tried." "That's it. Stop. I don't want to listen to this nonsense. Tell me straight out, are you afraid that he will break into your room at night and humiliate you again? To beat?" The girl, looking at the floor, nodded shallowly. I thought for a couple of seconds, then decided, "Get ready, Kirsty. Let's go to my place." "Why?" "You can't stay alone and you need to take something sedative. Go. You'll spend the night at my place." At home, both Lillian and the children greeted our couple with surprise. I explained the situation briefly and everyone stopped acting wary. We sat quietly, had dinner, exchanged insignificant phrases. But a certain perplexity was constantly spinning in my head, and it could not take shape in any way into a thought. And when it took shape, "Kirsty, I am surprised and alarmed by this question. This Luciano of yours took all the money, left you without a livelihood. And today I came back, what for?" "I don't know." "Luciano, did he inject, snort, smoke?" Well, yes. He smoked weed sometimes, and sometimes he sniffed the powder." "And you?" Kirsty stared at me in surprise. "Mark, how do you imagine my job is stoned?" "Yes, I will miss a single zero, or I will add an extra one, and the office will be in such trouble that I will not just be fired. They'll kill me." "Sirt," I growled. "Pack up, let's go." "Where to? What happened? I don't understand." "I'll tell you on the way." Only Lillian stopped me on the threshold. "Mark, I'm asking you to be careful." "Okay, honey, I'll be as careful as I can." When I reached the landing on the second floor, I pressed my finger to my lips to keep the woman quiet. "Give me the key," I whispered. The key didn't work. I am familiar with such locks. If you turn the latch handle from the inside, the key locks. There's someone inside. "Kears, call the police." What should I say? Talk about the apartment robbery. And Martinez, going down to the landing below, began to dial a number on her cell phone. Footsteps sounded outside the door. I quietly inserted the key into the lock and waited. As soon as the latch clicked, I turned the key and left it in the lock. Damn it, holy shit, fuck! What the fuck is with this lock? Luciano at first violently twisted the latch handle. Then he tried to put his key on the other side of the lock. But my key wouldn't let him do it. He hissed and cursed, not understanding what was going on, and I needed to stretch out the time until the police arrived. Martinez fiddled with the lock for a long time, about 5 minutes. Then he hissed, "To hell with it. This is the second floor." I flew down the stairs and ran out of the entrance. A patrol car had just pulled up, the same guys who came to us for the first time. I screamed, "He's going to jump out of the window now," pointing with his finger at the supposed landing place of Luciano. When the esteemed Mr. Martinez collapsed on the lawn, he was immediately pinned down by the cops. I asked the police, "Officers, check his bag." Before parachuting himself, Martinez threw a large suitcase out the window. When it was opened, the cops whistled in amazement. One patrolman ran to the car and mumbled something into the radio, and the other one pointed at Kirsten and me. "Sir, ma'am, I ask you to be clear when detaining a drug dealer with a shipment of cocaine. These are the pies, with kittens. 6 kilograms of cocaine worth $250,000. It is unclear why he took out all her savings from his wife. Compared to the cost of the coke in his bag, Kirsten had pennies on her cards. At midnight, I drove Kirsten from the station to her apartment, and he went home. I should have gotten some sleep. Lillian hasn't gone to bed yet. I was worried. I waved away her questions. "Lily, I'm terribly tired and nervous. I'll tell you everything tomorrow." The next day, as I was approaching my office before I turned the corner, I overheard a conversation between 2 women. Gloria and Kirsten were talking. The latter was surprised. "I don't understand how he figured it out. How did he know that Luciano would get into the apartment? Moreover, there will be drugs there." Gloria explained to her, "Kirsty, don't forget that Dodson is a genius, and you and I are ordinary people. My chest has become 10 centimeters wider. I haven't felt such a surge of self-confidence in a long time." At the trial, Luciano realized that he was in big trouble and would be locked up somewhere in St. Clair for 15 or even 20 years. And for some reason, he began to drown Kirsten. He made her look like an accomplice and a drug addict, a naive Mexican boy. When it was my turn to ask questions, I asked if his wife had helped him move and store his goods. He vigorously confirmed this fact. And when I asked why there were no fingerprints on the bags of cocaine, or on the floorboards of the hiding place, he began to invent something about rubber gloves and other nonsense. It was also inconclusive that he was given 1 year for perjury. Before sending the jury to deliberate, the judge bitterly asked, "Martinez, it's not the first time we've met. Could you, for the sake of decency, not break at least one state law? Look, a fight in a bar, driving under the influence of alcohol, theft of alcohol, extortion, attempted robbery, and now drugs, plus ignoring my no approach and carrying concealed weapons without a license. Okay, good. It's time for the jury to decide your fate." The poor man was soldered in for a total of 18 years in prison and sent to Springville prison. Kirsten was completely acquitted. Irwin, on behalf of the board of directors, thanked me for my participation in the fate of a valuable employee. Yes, valuable. Maybe Kirsty is not a genius in everyday life, but with numbers she is on top. She's juggling data in a way that makes my eyes blink. And Kirsten herself told me the next day the way Lillian once did. "Mark, if it wasn't for you, I'd be in big trouble." I stood in the aisle between the tables and waited for him to continue. But Kirsten sobbed, turned away, and ran to her department. Later, Kirsten invited me to a Thanksgiving dinner at a luxury restaurant. I refused. There's no need to spend money. The gesture of appreciation is too expensive, and that seemed to be the end of it. But no. Somehow information about my divorce leaked to the factory, and immediately more than a dozen women appeared, making both ambiguous and direct hints of interesting communication. And then 2 women, Glo and Kirsty, stood up to guard my morality. They kicked out ladies rushing to me who wanted to get legal advice. Kirsty hissed, "You're interfering with my work. For advice, contact your lawyers. After all, you can twist your ass after hours, right?" And I, thanks to my protectors, worked quietly, suspecting nothing. He monitored changes in legislation, considered questionable proposals, and analyzed draft contracts for possible loopholes and incidents. In January, on Monday the 7th, Kirsten came into my office and said from the doorway, "Mark, we're having a baby." I dropped the folder I was about to put in the closet. "Oh, sorry. I wanted to say that we need to spread the word that we're with you. Well, in general." I picked up the folder. "Kirsty, you can kill like that." "Mark, I'm sorry. I was just thrilled with the idea and couldn't help myself." "And what will it give me?" Here you are working and you don't know what's going on. Glow and I don't have time to fight off the candidates for your hand and heart, and we have to work. And well, I realized that I had stupidly let the mood in the team out of control. After a little thought, I agreed. Okay, Kirsty, run this, Des. At the end of the working day, a small flock of local misses lined up at the entrance. Martinez, walking beside her, hissed, "Wah, damn it, they're watching." "It's okay," I said. "Get in my car. I'll give you a ride home." Kirsten walked up to my Equinox, opened the passenger door and proudly lifted her chin, looked with her murderously crooked grin at the annoyed rivals. We had a conversation on the way. "Mark, were you ashamed to go to a restaurant with me? Would it be unpleasant for you to sit at the same table with me?" Kirsten asked. I'm a little freaked out. "No, of course not. Absolutely not. Kirsty, any man I know would love to be on a romantic date with you." "Not you? I would be glad too. But your salary of $48,000 is unlikely to allow you to take your superiors to restaurants. This is not necessary. And if you can't cook, then—" I didn't have time to finish because an explosion followed. "Me? Can't cook?" Kirsten choked with indignation. I realized that I had blurted out stupidity, but the escape route was cut off. "Do you know how I cook?" "Yes, I am. Yes, my mother taught me to cook. I'll show you how I can't cook. Now you'll see how I can't cook. Come on, let's go." I realized that I was in serious trouble. We had just arrived at Kirsten's 5-story building. In the apartment, Kirsty sat me down on the sofa in front of the TV and ordered, "Wait." 20 minutes later, the rattle of knives, the crunch of a grater, and the sizzle of oil in a frying pan, brushes in an apron entered the living room. "Done. Let's go." She turned around and muttered angrily, "I can't cook. It's necessary." She led me into the kitchen dining room. There were plates of fried golden rolls on the table, an unlabeled bottle of wine, and a candlestick with 3 candles. "What is it?" I pointed an uncivilized finger at an unknown dish. "This is chimichanga. Try it, gentlemen. It was delicious. This one, chimichanga. It was scaldingly spicy, juicy, with a thin, crispy crust, just melted on the tongue, bringing all taste buds to delight. I came to my senses only when I ate the last crumb, washed down with spicy wine." "What kind of wine is this?" "My uncle does it. He doesn't name him in any way. It's just wine." This just wine turned out to be deceptively light. My head and heart warmed up. "Well, how is it?" Martinez asked me with her trademark grin. "Kirsty, this is amazing. There are no words. You're a wonderful, great, excellent, delicious cook." "I'm sorry." I blurted it out without thinking. The hostess looked at me condescendingly as if I were an unreasonable child. "I was cooking like this right now, in a hurry." When I get down to business thoroughly, the guests crawl out from behind the table holding their bellies. She poured us another glass. "Let's drink to you." "And for you," I added. And I realized that I was overdoing it with alcohol. The world suddenly seemed beautiful, life was wonderful, the future was magical, and the woman sitting across from me at the table was divine. I quickly roused myself and stopped this complacency. The world has returned to its original state, to dullness, everyday life, and mournfulness. Kirsten turned pink from drinking and began to gesticulate more vigorously than usual. "I want to tell you something, Mark. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what would have happened to me. You saved me. My husband, who should be my support and protection, almost drowned me in shit, along with himself. Asshole. But it's not about him right now." I concentrated. The beginning was alarming. "Go on, Mrs. Martinez. When you were standing there in front of the court, and he calmly proved my innocence, something cracked in my soul. Something turned. Do you understand?" "Not really yet." The hostess sat for a while, lowering her eyes, then decided. "At that moment, I fell in love with you. All the other men in this world have ceased to exist, and only you remain. Everything inside me was filled with this love. From that moment on, my soul belongs only to you. Here." I sat and silently digested this message. Kirsten also fell silent. Finally, she asked, "What do you say, Mark?" "Kirsty, this—" Suddenly. "You are an amazing woman and you could take any man in this city. I'm serious. Anyone would run after you like a dog with their tongue out. You can't help but like me. You're a walking Viagra. I can imagine what a pleasure it is to be your lover and husband." A part of my heart belongs to you, but I see, the hostess nodded bitterly. Oh, you don't understand anything. Think about it. I have a tale of 4 children. I love them and I can't leave them. I have a wild and ridiculous family situation. I'm cursed. I don't know by whom, God, fate, or someone else. I looked into the sad brown eyes. I have no right to cripple your fate. I understood all this a long time ago. That's not what I'm interested in. Tell me straight out how you feel about me. This is very important to me. I didn't think for a second. I admire you. She opened her eyes wide. Are you serious? Absolutely serious. You're as beautiful as a work of art. Your body, your face, your energy, everything is meant for love and worship. Kirsty's wry, ironic grin was creeping over her face, but I knew she was smiling so blissfully. Kirsty, I continued, the only reason I'm not in love with you is because I forbid myself to do it. Think about it yourself. Why do you need me? Martinez got up, pushed back her chair with a bang, came over and sat on my lap. Mark, dear, let go of your heart. Why are you keeping him in a cage? Let go. And she started kissing my face. Tell me, what should I have done? I lowered it. I do not know how Kirsty's intimate life with her faithful husband developed there. But when I messed with her bean a little, she exploded. It just exploded. She struggled, sobbing dryly without tears, arching, standing on the bridge. I was even scared. Finally, she calmed down, lying relaxed and breathing heavily. I tried to repeat the execution and touched my lips to the innermost. Kirsty pulled away from the pillow, wheezed, No need, I can't take it anymore. Then she cut herself off. What a fool. Don't pay attention, dear. Yes, Mark, yes, do it again. The second explosion was not long in coming. We ended up in a puddle on a wet sheet. Then there were the third and fourth times. After the last bout of madness, the brush passed out. It seemed to me that she had lost consciousness. But no. Martinez was breathing evenly and whistling calmly through her nose. She's lost her mind. I fell asleep. Well. I laid out the sofa in the dining room, picked up the girl in my arms and carried her to a new, dry place, along with a blanket. She didn't even wake up. There, next to her, I passed out myself. I woke up to being straddled. This time we slowly enjoyed each other until a hot and ecstatic ecstasy crept up on us. Mark, I want to be with you. You're not going to leave me, are you? The girl whispered. How am I going to give up half of my soul? I can't live without her. And we kissed for another 10 minutes, until Kirsty got worried. Mark, what time is it? I picked up the phone from the table. 3 hours and 20 minutes. Oh, we still have almost 3 hours. Martinez lay down on her back next to me. Lie down on me. Let's try it like all normal people. Let's see how we do it. Before we went to work, I humored both Kirsty and myself 2 more times. And most importantly, on an emotional high, I did not feel tired at all. Kirsty was smiling happily all the way, and when she got out of the car and turned to face me, I froze. She was worried. Mark, what happened? My darling, look in the mirror. The Goldie sat down in front of the rearview mirror. Did I get dirty somewhere? Smile. Kiers stretched her lips into a smile and straightened up again. So what? Then suddenly realizing what had happened, she abruptly returned to the mirror. Damn it! Heck! Martinez touched her right cheek and lips. It's crazy. On the way to our offices, Kirsty shone like a morning star with her stunning, already symmetrical smile. I looked at the happy Martinez and asked myself, well, why did you do that, you old prick? And he answered himself, but I wanted to, and I did. And then, with complete self-confidence and conviction, he added, I have a right to this girl, the right of love. Is that clear? Later, when I went to invite my woman to lunch, I accidentally overheard a conversation. Curtsy explained to Gloria, it's because he loved me so much. Do you understand, Glo? Mark didn't use me, he loved me. He turned my mind upside down. He made me so happy that I can't help but smile with my whole face. Can you imagine? Kirsten, I'm so happy for you. Don't offend him. He's already with his ex. Then they saw me. I pretended that I hadn't heard anything and invited the ladies to the nearest cafeteria restaurant from the office, the same Bee Gees. Then everything spun very quickly, like in a kaleidoscope. Kirsty and I went to her mother's house on Saturday. Blanca Acosta works at a gas station. You probably know this little gas station at the junction of Goodwin Road and Rose Road. It is called, interestingly, Tumbleweed. and Blanca lives in the house right next to the gas station. I officially invited Blanca and Kirsty to the Wenzel Oyster House restaurant in Gartensville by the lake. I liked it there. A quiet place, away from the roads, good food, and a warm family atmosphere. Oysters baked in breadcrumbs with lemon are very good there. And if anyone doesn't like oysters, there was an extensive menu of seafood and river fish. In short, during dinner in front of a large gathering of people, I presented Kirsty with a 4-carat diamond ring and asked her to become my wife. Kirsty squealed with delight, and the guests of the institution, who were packed with 40 or 50 people, greeted this with thunderous applause. They didn't know that Kirsty was officially still a married woman, but they didn't need to know that. On February 5th, Martinez received a court decision on the dissolution of the marriage. And 2 weeks later, on February 16th, we were married in the Church of William. Both the children and Lillian were sympathetic to my demarche. Only Austin said sadly, "Well, that's it. Now we're like everyone else." When I asked, "Why is it like everyone else?" he replied, "Only 2 children in the class have both a dad and a mom. Everyone else lives only with their mothers. Yeah, something is happening with family values in our country." Lily didn't turn the kids against me like most women would. She honestly told the children that she was to blame for our breakup, without explaining the details. Both Lillian and my children, they were guests at my wedding, and my Molly, my princess, my sunshine and joy, my bird and bunny. Sorry, I got carried away. She proudly played the role of a flower girl in the church. And a month later, I found and bought a good apartment at the intersection of Testel Avenue and 1st Street. A wonderful house, dark red in color with a tiled roof. Later, I painted it sky blue. Kirsty liked it that way. It's not as big as my old house on Dixie, but it should have been enough for us for a long time, if not for life. The most important advantage of this cottage was that it was a 3-minute walk from the house of my children and my ex-wife. Lillian, as promised before, tried to find a common language with Kirsten. To be honest, it made me uneasy. The 2 women were clearly becoming friends. Kirsty shared recipes with Lily. She really cooked professionally. And Lily was telling a woman 8 years younger than her about the mysteries of motherhood. Still, Lillian is reserved and smart. She has remained very delicately in my life. I kept hoping that she would meet her mate and start living a full life, but she refused to arrange a personal life. Kirsty and Lily also got together on the basis of religion. Both come from deeply religious families. Both are Catholic. Every Sunday, they dressed in long dark dresses, gathered their hair in a bun, covered their heads with shawls, and decorously stomped into the small Catholic church on Dixie Street. It was a couple 100 meters from my old house. They also took the children with them. Then, after returning from the service, they tripled the brunch. Most often in Lily's house. I did not go to the church, citing my busy schedule, but at brunches after Mass, my presence was mandatory. Both women insisted on this. One day, while visiting my old house, Lily and I had a conversation about different things, in short. She confessed, "Do you think that I've stopped loving you? No, you're wrong. I am very worried about your fate, your health and your well-being. Add to this the fact that you are the father of my children. I hope," she closed her eyes and sighed, "I hope I can get back into your life. Someday." "Lily," I said to her, "find yourself a man." "That you're suffering," she chuckled. "Do you think that men are sold at the bird market? You know I found myself a man." Yes, I'll show you now." She returned from the bedroom with a lilac masturbator. "This is my man since you left, and you know who I represent in time. During these sessions, do you know?" What could I tell her? Well, I didn't say anything. Moreover, Kirsty returned from the yard. Children? And what about children? The children now lived in 2 houses and even boasted about it in front of their peers. Life has entered a stable, albeit extremely strange channel. My wife and I have gradually moved out of the field of extreme erotic exercises. They stopped being a crazy feast and turned into small daily celebrations, holidays of love and tenderness. And quite naturally, this led to Kirsten's pregnancy. At the beginning of April, she announced at dinner, "Mark, we're having a baby." I grinned, remembering her adventure. "What? Again?" "Honey, I'm not kidding. I'm pregnant." She put her hand on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby." I wasn't hopping around the living room like a crazy rabbit. That was when Lily got pregnant with Alicia, and I received this message with calm satisfaction. He hugged his wife, hugged her to him, and whispered, "Thank you, dear. I am very happy." Until June, life was wonderful. It was the existence of a completely satisfied person, in every way. On the 9th of June, it was Sunday. There was a knock on the door of my new house. A policeman was standing in the doorway. "Good afternoon, sir. We have information," he announced, "that Kirsten Acosta, a.k.a. Kirsten Martinez, a.k.a. Kirsten Dodson, lives at this address." I tensed up. What the hell happened again? "Yes, officer, you have the right information. Can I see her?" "Come on in." I invited the cop into the house. "Darling, the police want to see you." Kirsty came out of the bedroom, and she also asked warily, "Hello, sir. How can I help you?" "Ma'am," the officer reported, "yesterday at 11:30, your ex-husband, Luciano Martinez, escaped from a place of detention. If he comes into your field of vision, we would like you to report it to the station immediately." I asked, "How did he escape? I hope this is not a secret." "No, it doesn't," the cop reassured me. A thunderstorm was approaching Springville on Saturday, and lightning struck the transformer of the city substation. The electricity went out. Prison staff were passing through the gates with electric locks at that time. The doors couldn't lock. The prisoners were out walking in the yard. Martinez knocked down a guard at one gate, punched a guard in the face at the second, and ran away. Couldn't they have shot him? I was upset. The guards would have to shoot towards the city. You know, it's fraught. "And now what?" Kirsty asked, startled. "Now there is a possibility that the criminal will come out to you. He had already stolen a car, and the Springville police had managed to lose him. He's hiding somewhere. Therefore, we hope for your prudence and civic responsibility. Goodbye." The policeman saluted, turned around in formation, and left, leaving us in a minor mood. "What are we going to do?" Kears asked. "We won't do anything special, but we won't do anything stupid." I looked at my wife carefully and repeated, "We won't do anything stupid, okay?" "Of course, dear. To make sure to prevent nonsense, on Monday evening I went to Colonial Avenue and bought myself a gun. You probably know that in Little Albertville, with a population of 22,000 people, there are 14 gun shops. Can you imagine how many weapons the population has in their hands? And given Alabama's overly loyal gun laws, I couldn't rule out the possibility of an armed attack from Luciano Martinez. I especially liked the Beretta Storm. She lay down in her hand like a native. I just didn't want to let go. I didn't let go. I gave $1,400 and another $3,500 for cartridges, a spare magazine, and a belt holster. Right there, in the store, I made an application for a concealed carry permit. Silent Wolf Armament also provided such a service. I got my license on Tuesday. I immediately felt like a cool macho man. But the tension was building. By Wednesday, there was no news of the fugitive's capture. The city was announcing the possible appearance of a dangerous criminal. They warned me to be careful and asked me to stay at home in the evenings. Everything happened quickly and unexpectedly. After work, my wife and I drove up to the house, and I had already opened the front door when the brakes screeched from behind. I turned around, but Luciano jumped out of the Toyota like the devil out of a box. The car hadn't even stopped completely yet, as he was already a couple of meters away from me. I reached for the barrel to the holster on my belt, but I didn't have time. Martinez was literally a fraction of a second ahead of me. He struck 4 times. All the blows landed in the stomach. I didn't feel any pain at all and continued to pull out the gun, but suddenly I felt strangely weak. My legs gave way and I hit my face on the porch. Luciano approached Kirsty, shouting, "I warned you! I finally managed to get my Beretta out." Kirsty was retreating down the corridor backwards, and Martinez was advancing on her, waving his arms. Dark circles appeared in front of his eyes. Lying down with the last of my strength, I pointed the barrel at the criminal's back and pulled the trigger. At that moment, the lights went out. I woke up in the medical ward. I'm lying on a drip. Turning my head, I found a woman dozing in an armchair next to my bed. Blinking to clear the haze before my eyes, I recognized Lynette Dodson, my mother. Deja vu. "Mom, where?" "Kirsty." Mom jumped up. "My God, Mark, you're awake." Now I started to feel the pain. A small fire was slowly burning inside his stomach. "Damn. Mom, where?" "Kirsty," I insisted. "She's sitting here in the hallway. It's Marshall Medical again, son." And she answered my questioning look. "She's fine." The pain in my stomach became unbearable, and I fell back into a saving unconsciousness. I woke up the second time with a fairly clear head. I didn't feel any pain. There was some lethargy, but it was most likely from the painkiller. I lay with my eyes closed for a long time, until the rounds started. It was the same doctor who treated me last time. He looked at Daddy, then took out a penlight and shone it into my eyes for some reason. He hid the instrument and reproached. "Something, Mark. You've been visiting us a lot." "Yes, Freddie. Circumstances are constantly not in my favor. In general, so, do you know what happened?" "Yeah. You don't know? You were stabbed 4 times in the stomach with a screwdriver. It's lucky that the paramedics reacted quickly and brought you to me without peritonitis. You're lucky." "Apparently not very much." "Why not? I've patched you up nicely. Intestinal ruptures will heal in a couple of weeks. Even a resection was not needed. So everything is very good. You will have to abstain from food for 4 days." "Fred, do you happen to know what happened to the man who attacked me?" Fred sighed. "I happen to know. He was brought to me, but he did not survive. You shot him in the right lung first. The bullet is expansive. Severed a major artery, the man would have choked on blood. But then you hit the spine. The 5th vertebra of the thoracic kyphosis was crushed. Just in pieces. 2 wounds incompatible with life activity." "2? Are you sure it's 2? Rosinski grinned. "Mark, are you doubting my arithmetic abilities?" No, it's okay, Fred. Everything is fine." In the afternoon, Mom and Dad came, Kirsten and Lillian, and even Gwen, my ex-mother-in-law. The father came up, stroked his head like a little one, and said, "Son, I'm proud of you. I found out everything was going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I'm sorry, I'm leaving. I have to go to work. A restless old man. I think he's going to die teaching in the department." I was worried about only one question. How did Luciano find out where we live? "How?" I asked. "Kirsten, do you happen to know who gave him our address?" "I know." His wife lowered her eyes. I raised an eyebrow questioningly. Kirsty hesitated. "Martinez came to visit his mother." "And your mom gave him your address?" I was indignant. "No, she called me and handed him the phone. I was waiting. Kirsten has become more frequent. Mark, he asked for money. He asked for 10,000. He wanted to go to Mexico. I have 12 on deposit. I wanted to give them to him. He promised to leave and never come into my life again." "Here," I pursed my lips bitterly. "And you gave him the address?" "Yes," his wife whispered. "Should you consult with me? No, not fate?" Kirsty was sadly silent. "Then the question is, have you told anyone this romantic story of yours?" "No, Mark, no one." "Then be quiet. Do you understand? Keep quiet because you wanted to become an accomplice to a crime. You're planning to help a fugitive criminal. Do you understand me?" Kirsten stared at me with wide eyes. I raised my voice. "Kiers, do you understand me?" Yes, dear. I understand you. I won't tell anyone." I looked at Lillian. She held out her hands. "Darling, I won't tell anyone anything. I'm not... Mark, Kirsty is my friend. Don't worry, I won't betray her." Everyone fell painfully silent. I was silent for a while too, then grinned. My first wife tried to blow me up after 14 years of marriage. The second one tried to stab 4 months after the wedding. The next one will kill me right at the altar. "What's the next one?" My wife was worried. "Mark, there is no need for any next." She rushed to me and Lillian held her back harshly. "Let go!" Kiers was tugging at her hand. "Do you want his stitches to come apart?" Lily asked sternly. The wife stopped. "Mark, I'm being careful. I'm all right." She came to the bed, took my hand and pressed it with her palm to her cheek. "Mark," she whispered, "get well. If you want something, just say the word. I'm tired. I want you to go away and let me die in peace. I'm really tired." Everyone obeyed and left the room. Everyone except Mom. She looked at me questioningly from her chair and I reacted, "Thanks, Mom. Thanks for staying."